Well, unfortunately, it's not good news. It's also not surprising news. The forecasted strength of Ida at landfall is now being projected by the National Hurricane Center to be that of a 4. We said that that was very possible, and there is still some kind of ambiguity in that forecast, as no models at the moment are going with a 5. There are a majority of our intensity forecasts going with a 4, so that wasn't really a surprise, and hopefully that is where it plateaus. But again, I wish I could bring some good news here. It really is not. It is holding its own with winds of 80 miles an hour. In fact, we've kind of seen it strengthen a bit, even as some of the thunderstorms started to collapse, as now it is interacting with Cuba. But you can clearly see what occurred earlier this morning, that more well-defined symmetrical structure, and that allowed it to really start to intensify, and that continued from early this morning and has continued really throughout most of the day, even with that interaction of land. But as I'd mentioned in an earlier update, the land here, the Isle of Youth, as well as western Cuba, is all pretty flat terrain. So there, yes, a little bit of added friction, but it's nothing like the more mountainous islands as you get into eastern Cuba, and clearly more like Hispaniola. Now you can see from those brighter thunderstorm clouds, they have kind of collapsed. It looks like a new surge of it developing around the center, but it has kind of fallen apart a bit. So that land interaction is certainly doing something, but as I mentioned, not really weakening it all that much at all. And further intensity is almost certain with the storm, becoming a 3 by sometime tomorrow midday and through the afternoon, and then building up to a 4 probably by late Saturday, early Sunday, and continuing to strengthen up to the point of landfall. And again, I don't always want you to focus on that center line, but the center line also becomes important at landfall, because wherever it does make landfall, that's going to be the area that sees the strongest of the winds. If there's any silver lining for New Orleans, is that the models have been trending a little more to the west. And what that means is it would take the strongest of the winds a little bit more to our west. And as things are setting up right now, the storm would be worse in Baton Rouge and potentially Lafayette than it would be in New Orleans. A lot of folks have been asking, if I go, where should I go? Certainly not Baton Rouge, certainly not Lafayette. You'd probably be okay Lake Charles farther west, and really out toward the Alabama coast, Florida coast, you'd be okay as well. Mississippi coast, I would still avoid, as we could even see a little bit of a track back eastward. It doesn't look likely at the moment, but if you're going to go east, I think you'd be safe in Alabama or in Florida. Certainly, you're going to be on the okay side. We're still going to get some rain there, but it's not going to be the worst of it. But at the moment, we are looking at this becoming a Category 4 up to the point and before landfall. As I'd mentioned, the models are in fairly decent agreement. They're not completely clustered around any one individual point at the coast, but it does include almost the entirety of the South Louisiana coastline. So there is still a decent spread. And notice that the Hurricane Center's margin of error does include all of that uncertainty from the computer models. And again, it is not, though, that the precise landfall is written in stone. The landfall in South Louisiana is written in stone. Here's what the models are saying. And again, the GFS, the Euro, have been indicating over the last several days that this could potentially explode in strength. And so we will likely see that rapid intensification over the Gulf waters, and basically about a 36-hour time span. Once it crosses Cuba, gets into the Gulf, it has nothing to hinder that development as it moves toward the Louisiana coast. And notice, this is the GFS forecast, on top of which I've placed the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center. The Hurricane Center's forecast is almost in perfect agreement with the strength, track, and landfall timing of the GFS. Not quite as in agreement with the Euro. The Euro is slightly different. Matter of fact, it's actually a little slower than what the Hurricane Center is saying. As far as the precise landfall point, the Euro has been trending a little bit more toward Vermilion Bay, whereas the Hurricane Center is almost kind of coming in between Terrebonne and Vermilion at landfall. Again, that's the precise point, which you know it's going to be one way or the other. But certainly, South Louisiana's coast is getting hit by a, at the moment, Category 4 storm. Storm surge, we may see these numbers change as we now have an even stronger expectation, or a stronger hurricane expected to make landfall. At the moment, we're looking at along the Mississippi coast and almost all of the South Louisiana coast, 7 to 11 feet of storm surge in the lake waters. Remember, the direction the storm is moving right now is going to pile up all of that water and send it along our coast, going to send it inland and into the lake. Levee protection system should hold. So you see the areas in the potential storm surge. The areas in white are all of the areas in the levee protection system. So the computer doesn't generate the potential for high water in those areas. But as you get into more the Biloxi Marsh and then right up to the levees in lower Plaquemines, you're looking at the red, oranges to the reds, that's 6 to 9 feet above ground level. Along the lakefront, you're looking at 3 feet, potentially some spots of 6 feet, especially near Slidell. As you get into St. Charles, St. John, St. James, you're looking at that inundation of water from Lake Pontchartrain at the moment going 3 to 6 inches. Same for Houma, same out toward Morgan City, outside of the levee system. And at the moment, notice the track would take it near Cocodrie and bring it right over Morgan City. Now, this is not the same track that Zeta took. Zeta did make landfall in Cocodrie, but if you remember, Zeta came directly over Metro New Orleans. This is not coming directly over Metro New Orleans. So at the moment, again, if you're just following that center line, and again, it's going to be either east or west of that, at the moment, the strongest winds would be near that center. So you're looking at Morgan City to Pierre Part and up toward Baton Rouge. That's why I say conditions will likely be worse in Baton Rouge than they will be in New Orleans. What's happening with the storm right now? We had hoped maybe this wind shear from the upper low would kind of keep Ida weak. That was happening over the last several days. It's kind of surpassed that. One of the reasons why that the shear is still actually fairly strong with the storm, although now it's almost creating its own shear, and it's not going to have much of it in the upper parts of the atmosphere and kind of the surrounding environment that would help to weaken the storm. But one of the reasons that it kind of exploded in strength near the Isle of Youth was the fact that it passed over an area of that deep warm water, very similar to the loop current. It passed over that, and we kind of saw the storm explode in strength. That's what is expected as it moves through the Gulf of Mexico. It is once again going to be passing over a very kind of a well of very deep warm water that should allow the storm to explode. One thing that actually may be working in our favor, and again, I don't wish this storm on anyone, but what may be working in the favor of New Orleans is that this high does look like it's going to be building farther inland, and that is what is going to keep pushing the storm more to the west. I think we're going to see a dramatic westerly shift in the direction, but that does place it more into south central Louisiana and does push it a little bit more away from the New Orleans viewing area. What that means is, though we're still on the worst side of the storm, it is going to take that small corridor of the strongest winds a bit more to our west. So what are the winds expected to be like? As we go into Sunday early morning, we're already seeing this on the North Shore. You're at tropical depression to tropical storm force winds, 40 plus miles an hour. The areas in this kind of pink color are 39 to 57 miles an hour. So that's early on Sunday morning. Again, if you're going to do anything in terms of prepping the home to get ready or leaving, you still have tomorrow. By tomorrow night and on into Sunday, that's it. You need to stay where you are because it is too late to leave. The strongest of the winds are still offshore early on Sunday morning. As we continue through, notice the strongest, the hurricane force winds are going to be right near the center. What are we seeing in the city by 7 o'clock on Sunday? We're still at tropical storm force winds, likely in excess of 70 miles an hour and likely some higher gusts. But the strongest of the winds, category 1 to 2, and then the core of those strong winds of major hurricane are only going to be right near the center of the storm. So unless you are at the center, you are not going to see the 140 or greater mile per hour winds. It is going to be only where the center of the storm makes. So if you can avoid the eye wall, then you're in better shape. Obviously, even 70 mile an hour winds are going to do some damage, especially as you get closer to the more category 1 to 2 force winds. But as I said, as we kind of put this into motion, notice New Orleans kind of avoiding the hurricane force winds. Baton Rouge, however, will not. And the storm will be weakening as it moves inland, but it likely at this point will be worse for the folks in Baton Rouge and Lafayette than it will be in the city of New Orleans. We're also looking at quite a bit of rainfall. We are on the dirty side, as we call it, and right now 8 to 12 inches looks fairly possible across a widespread area with some localized amounts of around 15 inches of rain. This is the 7-day forecast, but all of this is coming in late tomorrow, Sunday, and into early Monday. We actually should start to see improving conditions by later in the evening on Monday, and the rest of the week improving weather. So tropical impacts begin on Saturday night. We will start to see those winds picking up. We'll start to see the outer bands of the rainfall. Rapid intensification at this point, almost more than likely, it looks possible. Now is the time to be ready, and now is the time to execute that plan. If you're going to leave, I've already had reports that traffic is already pretty bad across the region, and it's only going to get worse. Landfall southeast or more south central Louisiana sometime late Sunday or into early Monday. So that's how things stand as of right now. It is a strong hurricane and only going to get stronger up to the point of landfall.